Alrighty, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Check settings really fast. All right, looks good. Audio and video look good. Excellent, excellent. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Just go ahead. I'd like to, as always, just give it a few seconds. This time, not running super far behind schedule, which is kind of nice. So we're going to go ahead and just give it a few moments. Thank you for those who have sent in super chats so far. My goodness. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Delta. Allow everyone to get the notification and come on in. We'll jump in here in just a second. I hope you guys are having some weekend so far. Northwest Wind, hello, sir. Mystical. Oh, Milan Pop, that's great. Oh my goodness, congratulations. Congratulations on the job. That's awesome. I am so happy for you. Yay. Hello, Amy. Hello, Becca. Autumn, Sarah. Hello. Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, we've got great questions coming in so far, and love seeing familiar faces and a blend of new ones. For those of you, if it is your first time here, welcome. And you know what? Let's go ahead and jump on in. I know we'll have more people joining over the span, of course. Let's go ahead and just get started. Why, shall we? Again, I want to thank you guys for being here. Happy Sunday, happy weekend. I hope it is a wonderful one for all of you so far. And thanks for coming to hang out for another round of live Q&As where we just hang out. You get to ask questions. And really, I do this for the same reason as I made this entire channel, and that's so that you can have better understanding of the law, better ways of implementing the law so that you can see the change in your life. I do have a couple of rascals behind me. Probably noticed this big thing over there. I do have some of the kittens that I'm fostering. We are moving next week, so we're clearing out the nursery right now. So these guys are going to be hanging out with me over the weekend. If you hear some commotion, they're wrestling. They're fine though. They're just playing and having a good time. Just as a heads up. You might hear little squeaks from time to time. They should calm down and go to bed, maybe. Maybe. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And with that said, we've already got a number of questions rolling on in. Let's jump in. Am I forgetting anything? I might be forgetting something. Oh, waitlist for one-on-one coaching. That is going to be opening here shortly. This week was a little bit behind schedule. Like I said, we are in the process of moving. We're almost done though, thankfully. So we are going to be opening those doors soon. If you are interested, make sure you check out the description box. I've also got links in the description box to my programs and courses. Still have 30% off the courses through tomorrow. So make sure to jump on that if you are interested and have not had a chance yet. All that down below. Where was I? Oh, there you are, Stephanie. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Hey, Missy, love your channel. I've been able to manifest things I felt doubtful about by visualizing. What is your take on that? I know you mentioned that doubt will impact your manifestation, which totally makes sense. So I was surprised when I was able to manifest things even when I wasn't honestly sure they'd come to pass. Great question. I know this one can be kind of a head scratcher because it seems to contradict everything that we talk about here. But to be clear, we can still see things come to pass even if we do have moments of doubt. The important part to note is what state we're dwelling in dominantly, more often than not. So even if we have moments where we may not be too sure or we may question or hesitate, so long as we're not dwelling in that state most of the time or more often than not, we'll likely still see it come to pass. So it's wherever you dwell most often. And that's also why I try to reassure people and say that even if you do have moments of doubt, even if you do have moments where you're questioning or not exactly sure or feeling fear or anxiety, that's not going to be what makes or breaks it. If you're noticing that overall you're dwelling in that state that feels, secure, that feels calm, even neutral. Yeah. Yeah. So it's wherever you dwell most often, dominantly. Man. I just cleaned that pen and it is destroyed. Oh, never a dull moment. Delta, thank you for the super chat. What to know how to get SP out of a poly relationship? I am not into that. This is my second super chat asking this. Oh, well, thank you for the super chat first. I'm sorry if there was one that was missed. I'm so sorry about that. How to get so, and I know that this is where it can feel like quite the struggle. Ideally, if there is a circumstance that we don't want, if there is a circumstance that we don't like, the practice here is taking the attention away from it. Now, I know at times that's going to feel much easier said than done. It can be challenging for us to not ruminate or fixate on the problems at hand, because for most people, we're very accustomed to doing that. We're very conditioned to dwell on what we don't want, worry, and things like that. But the practice, and again, the practice is redirecting our attention. And the whole point of the imaginal acts, the whole point of the techniques is so that we can begin to really focus and experience what we do want. So whether that be visualization, affirmations, whatever works best for you, you just want to make sure that you are practicing going to that place, constructing a scene that implies that it is monogamous, that you are in a monogamous relationship. So again, whatever that looks like, that would confirm to you that there is no longer this third-party circumstance. And I know at first it's probably going to feel challenging. We are likely going to have intrusive thoughts popping up. That's normal. That is normal. That is okay. But the whole point of persistence, the whole idea of persistence here is just that we are practicing getting familiar with that new state of being, with that new state of consciousness, right? So basically, like the same thing that we want to keep in mind for any third-party situation is the practice here is redirecting our attention and learning how to redirect our attention and keeping our focus predominantly on what we do want. Yeah, let me know if you need me to elaborate on anything there. And again, I'm sorry if I missed your first super chat. I sincerely, I do my very best to try to catch all of them. But thank you. Oh my goodness. Hey, be nice. Don't make me pull over. All right, where was I? Welcome, Butterfly. First live. Welcome. Chroma, thank you for the super chat. I think after they hear my voice, they start getting a little bit more amped. So, hi, Missy. I find myself having negative interactions with me in my head throughout the day, daydreaming. How do I towards him and feelings of jealousy at the thought of him with someone else. I feel ashamed of these feelings. Oh, I'm so sorry. I find myself having negative interactions. So, I mean, first, you are certainly not alone in this. And I try to reassure you, and I try to reassure other people that you're not alone in this experience. I personally have dealt with this very thing. I used to very much only be able to fixate on fighting and all the things in my head, daydreaming of what I don't want. Again, I know it can be challenging when we're so conditioned to do something, when we are so habitual in our ways like we are. It can be challenging to redirect. How do you release resentment towards him and feelings of jealousy? If you haven't yet, I would revise. I would make sure to get familiar with revision. I've made a few videos about revision. I talk about it often and I bring it up, but that's only because to really emphasize, like, if there are instances of the past, if there were interactions that we had with somebody that left an impression, that left an assumption, right, that we formed an assumption with, we want to ideally revise those. That's really the best way to break out of that resentment. Revision is forgiveness, essentially. So I've, like I said, I made a few videos talking about revision. If you have any questions about that specifically, I'm happy to go into detail, but that would be the first thing that I would do. And that was the first thing that I personally did when it came to releasing my judgments and my resentment and my anger that I had towards my person. Yeah. Last thing I will say is, and easier said than done, but do try to give yourself some grace. Do try to be calm. Do try to be kind to yourself. I know that when we feel ashamed, when we feel guilty for these feelings, it can be difficult, but you're human. We're all human. We want to practice giving ourselves some grace sometimes. John, hello, sir. I'm laughing so much at that kitten. Enjoy the background noise. Hopefully it's not too distracting. All right. Where was I? Francesca, hello. Welcome, lady. Missy SP said again, won't get back together, etc. I revised and manifested. He kept quiet. I told him he wouldn't meet anybody else. He kept quiet, then changed the subject, never mentioned it, then took me to theater. Am I wrongdoing? I revised and manifested. He kept quiet. So, and just to be clear, there was an interaction that was not good, that you did not want. You revised it and he changed the subject and he didn't mention it again. I mean, that sounds like you revised correctly. If I'm understanding. It sounds like you changed the course, or things change course, I guess. After that first interaction that was not good, and you revised it, it sounds like he did sort of change the trajectory. Unless I'm misunderstanding something, I wouldn't say that you're doing anything wrong there. No. I mean, that's exactly what we want to do, especially if there is like a 3D interaction that doesn't go great. Especially those times we would want to revise it. Ideally, and it might not always be easy to do in that moment. But again, to the best of our ability, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you handled that exactly how you would want to. You're welcome, Chroma. Sweet Sloth, I love your name. I love your name. Oh my god, they are so rambunctious. I love your username so much. Let me try to find your question here. Thank you for the super chat. Oh. You are so incredibly kind. My journey with manifestation started last year. After a terrible breakup, I went through so many different coaches, both English and my own language. But since I discovered you in February, I've only watched you. Many coaches have no experience and they teach us in a very unhealthy way, I think only for money. I'm not saying this is the case with everyone, but I think it's 80%. After their teachings, I had mental problems and obsessions with manifestation. Thanks to you, I started to approach it in a healthy way, and I'm very grateful for you. You are so kind. That was so incredibly sweet. Thank you. Thank you. And I can't speak to other coaches. I don't really watch a whole lot of content. But I really do try to put the emphasis first and foremost on mental health, on our mental health, our well-being. And that has to be the priority. That has to be the priority. I know how easy it can be to get stuck in a state of desperation and willing to do anything to get out of that state of desperation to the point of doing harm. I've personally been there. So you are so incredibly sweet. I'm so incredibly happy that you're here. Thank you. Thank you. That just made my day. That just made my entire day. Thank you so much for the super chat, Autumn. Hey, Missy, do you have any advice on how to choose between two desires? I'm conflicted about which career I want, but I know I only want one. Aw. Thank you, Autumn. How to choose between two desires? That is a really good question. I mean, the first thing that I would do, if you haven't yet, and maybe you already have, but really just meditate on it, not for the purpose of like trying to figure it out, but seeing what naturally comes to you. Like really putting yourself in one state and then another. Like, where do you feel like? For example, like, is one of those careers something that you would want only because it pays better? Or I guess finding if there's any fear-based reasoning there. Sometimes when we have two desires, there's one that we genuinely want and there's one that we think we should have because beliefs, practicality, stability, name the reason here. One's more fear-based, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Naturally, if this would be the case, you would want to go with where you are feeling moved or where you feel truly passionate about. If it's a matter of both things are very passionate, I would just focus on the state of feeling successful, feeling satisfied in the area of career and finances. So basically, I would go more general and see how things unfold. If it's truly If it's truly a matter of like you're stuck, you cannot decide, I would just go to the state of feeling yourself already in an incredibly satisfied position. You don't have to like put the specifics on that necessarily. So I would first, meditate on it, see if there's one that genuinely resonates more for you. Note if there's anything fear-based going on, if one desire is more based in like fear or practicality. And focus on the general state of a fulfilling career and feeling really satisfied in that regard. And note how things start to show up for you. The answer will make itself appear. It will make itself clear. Also, you and my cat have the same name. I love that. Oh, I love that. Well, tell Missy I said hi. Sarah, thank you, girl. Thank you for the super chat. And also good to have you here. Was in walking on air state of wish fulfilled in acupuncture last week, but last night in imagination, Sheen shifted to bad outcome. What's with that? Oh, boo. Boo. So last week you were feeling really good, feeling like walking on air. And then just last night, scene shifted to bad outcome. Did anything happen in the 3D? Did anything come up? I'm going to assume probably not. Otherwise, you might have mentioned that. If that's the case, it's likely the old man fighting, which I know is backlash is so annoying. And I know it feels like it can be endless sometimes. It's like, when the hell am I going to stop having backlash? But the way we can start to sort of perceive those moments of backlash is that change is taking place within us. Like if the ego didn't feel so threatened, right? The reason that backlash occurs is because the old man is feeling threatened, because change is taking place within you. So that's sort of a shift in perspective that we can try to make to ease this a little bit. Because again, I know how frustrating it could be. I would revise it, or just naturally reject whatever may have been coming up, like the unwanted scene naturally. But the telltale signs of backlash is that it seemingly comes out of nowhere, and it usually takes place after we've been making good progress, or after we've it feels like we're progressing, and then it feels like something's trying to like set us back. Yeah. But again, it's indication that there is change taking place. Yeah. Are you feeling any better today by chance? Let me know. Where was I? Francesca, thank you so much. Thank you once again. SB seems to be very arrogant and tough to manifest. How can I change? I am revising. Will he eventually show up as the version I am manifesting? I know when they show up in a way that's not what we want. I know we get naturally we get frustrated, and it can feel very yeah. It's not always easy. We are incredibly conditioned and in the habit of taking the 3D facts as facts. We're sort of unlearning a lot of the things that have been learned, reconditioning a lot of the things that have just sort of been naturally taking place. Like we're changing habits here, and habits are not always the easiest thing to break. Basically, we want to change the way you would want to change the way that you see him. Right now, you're taking it from the 3D. You're taking the assumption of him based on the 3D projection, like how he's showing up in the 3D. That's what's, you know, going into the assumption that's being formed. That part we're aiming to change here. The whole point of all of this is to begin to see them different in imagination. And again, I know when we interact with them in the 3D, it can be even more difficult because, again, the 3D seems so solid, it seems so factual, it seems so concrete. But the entire point of this is begin to accept what you are experiencing in imagination instead. Like, begin to go off of that version of him that you are imagining. Will he eventually show up as the version I am manifesting? He has to. He has to. If you persist in the state of him, the version of him that is showing up in the way that you want him to show up, he's showing up with kindness, with respect, with love and adoration. If that's where you're dwelling internally, that has to be outpictured because the 3D is just a reflection, right? Right. So, but the way that we begin to make that change is by accepting that what we are imagining and giving it the same kind of like credence as we do the 3D. Yeah. Sir Pickles, I think you, let me just make sure I didn't miss anyone. Sir Pickle. Okay, first off, your username and avatar are the cutest. Oh my god, it's a pug and a bow tie. Oh, that's darling. Hi, Missy. I'm recreating my SP down to her hobbies, career path, and mindset. Do you have any pointers for when recreating SP in their life? Thank you. Good question. Good question. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, one thing that I enjoyed doing was, and this is just myself personally, I enjoyed like putting it to paper. I enjoyed like documenting and really like sitting down and fleshing out that version of him, right? The constructs of my person. It sounds like, you know, that is what you're already doing, but sometimes even just putting it on paper or something that we can come back to can be helpful. When it comes to like imagining them differently, if that's more what you mean, experiment with different ways of imagining, experiment with different techniques, experiment with because everybody is going to be a bit different in that regard. If you're more of a visual person, if you're more affirmation based, but find what really takes off and resonates for you. Like when you go into imagination and you're experiencing that version of her and it just like lights you up inside. That's really the go-to here. That's the aim. So you know, whatever kind of resonates most for you. And then of course, continuing to go back to that experience until that seed is planted. But down to our hobbies, career path, and mindset, first thing that we want to do, get very, very clear on what we want. So I applaud you and your adorable username and avatar. Elise, thank you for the super chat. I'm just trying to find your question. How to manifest a terrific specific person out of the universe. I have a lifetime of failed relationships. I'm not young anymore. I've manifested wonderful men in New York past, but was too unsettled to appreciate them. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know one of the obstacles that we tend to face is we're using the circumstances and experiences of the past to gauge and predict what is going to happen in the future. And then there's a lot and many layers to each of us, but the belief that I'm not young anymore, so it's going to be somehow more difficult, or it's going to be harder to find somebody. That's an assumption, right? Everything is an assumption, and so we want to be aware of these things that we're assuming, and are we making things more difficult for ourselves than they need to be, right? Because really it comes back to the most important thing, and that is the conception of self, like your conception of self. So if there is a history of failed relationships and things not working out, if it doesn't feel like there's much good that you can pull out from memories past, I would revise through the creation of new memories. I would construct new memories. I would imagine scenarios that played out differently. I would imagine circumstance where you were taken out and you were treated very well, and people respected you, and people always prioritized you. Like, these are the kinds of things that we want to really begin to condition ourselves as, right? Like the first step in manifesting that desired relationship is also seeing and believing ourselves. Like, our own beliefs and assumptions around relationships must change, right? So, and again, you may already be doing this, you may already be implementing this, but really I would be focusing on imagining and experiencing the very best version of you who was treated well. Basically revising this history of failed relationships first and foremost, because we tend to live in the past a lot more than we realize. And we tend to take from the past and use that to sort of predict or gauge what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, just my 2 cents. Ranjay, thank you for the super chat. 3 years and I haven't seen any proof of getting my person. I feel like my whole life will go wasted in this if I keep waiting. I feel like giving up and hard to believe in this anymore. I've been there. I have certainly been there. I think there are times in just about everybody's journey where these types of things, these types of feelings come up. The first thing that I want to ask is, have you been living in the end for the last 3 years? Because it's sneaky. A lot of the times we're not even conscious of it. We say, oh, I've been manifesting for X amount of time, but have we been living in the end that whole time? Number one. Number two, if it feels like we're waiting, that should be our cue. That should be indication that we are not in this state, at least in that moment, in that, because we're always moving in and out of states. But in that moment, if we become aware that it feels like we're waiting, clearly we are not in the state of the wish fulfilled. So we want to use that as feedback, basically. Third thing I would say is, it sounds like the best thing here would be to focus on building your faith. Prove to yourself if the law is real or isn't. Because we can't call it a law and say that it works for some things and it doesn't work for other things. That's not how laws work. Either it works or it doesn't. I feel like giving up on how to believe in this anymore. And if you need to take a break, take a break. Number 4, if you need to take a break, take a break. If it feels like this is taking a toll on your mental health, if it feels like this is having an undesirable impact on you, like I said earlier, now I'm gonna die on this hill. We have to take care of ourselves first. We have to put our well-being first. Period. End of story. So if you need some time to just focus on you right now, then I would do so. Because I mean, the more frustration and the hopelessness that we feel, that's certainly not going to help us in any way. So it sounds like you may be experiencing some burnout, which is normal. But if that is the case, take some time for you right now. Take some time to just even just put the manifestation stuff on pause. Focus on you. Focus on getting yourself to a place that does feel better instead of worse. Now, I'm not saying give up on your person. I'm not saying anything like that. I don't like to tell people that because I don't think we should give up. But there's a difference between that and just pushing ourselves past the point of burnout. And so perhaps take a break and perhaps really focus on faith, the faith aspect of this. Like, is the law real or is it not? I've made a video about the Pearl of Great Price. That one may be helpful for you to check out. But yeah, I'm so sorry. I know this can be an incredibly difficult journey at times. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first and foremost. Sarah, come bring your kittens over. Let's have a play date. When can I get a one-on-one coaching appointment with you? Soon, soon. Keep eyes out on your inbox. That notice will be going out soon. Thank you for the super chat, Tam. Hey, Missy, I need some motivation with manifesting SP. I feel kind of hopeless and doubt my ability to be able to manifest SP. I'm so sorry. Oh, it seems like when it rains, it pours, huh, guys? Well, I mean, first, if you do need some pick-me-ups, I do have some videos. I have more success story videos coming out, but I do have some videos already up of some successes if you need just that boost. But where did you go? I feel kind of hopeless and doubt my ability to be able to manifest my person. And kind of what I was talking about with the last question. We want to make sure that we are also, aside from just imagining for what we desire, naturally we're here to do that, but we also want to make sure that we are building our faith here. We want to make sure that we are building trust in the law. So are we observing the relationship between the inner and the outer worlds? Are we seeing correlations? Are we seeing how the two are connected? Because we definitely want to make sure that we're doing that. Without faith, this is going to feel incredibly challenging to do. And we will pretty much be at the mercy of the 3D. And it sounds like that's what's going on right now. Our attention is on the 3D, and we are fixated on the absence of this person and how impossible this is and how impossible it's going to be, which is normal. But that's what I mean by building faith. Because if you have complete faith and trust in the law, it doesn't matter what the 3D looks like. It literally is not going to matter. But I would check out some of the success story videos if you need something to help you, give you a boost. If you need something, because I know from personal experience how difficult this journey can feel, especially when we're wavering, especially when we're not seeing results. But with that note, this is also why we have got to stop checking the 3D. And I know that part's hard because we're here for the sole reason that we want to see the 3D change. I get that. But the 3D changes when we change. Not before, right? Or if we do see a change in the 3D before we change, we don't want a temporary rearrangement of the 3D surface. Like we want lasting change. That is the ideal. Right now, I would focus on you. Turn the attention and focus it on you. Focus on getting yourself to a better place. Focus on things that help you to feel better, or at the very least, things to help you alleviate some of that anxiety or some of that fear or whatever all is going on. Have a day of self-care. Do something to help yourself, do something nice for yourself. Create a playlist of music and videos on YouTube that make you feel really good. But in these moments where we're feeling very hopeless and like this is not going to work, this isn't going to be helpful for me, from that state, yeah, it's going to feel difficult to go to the end. So take care of you first and foremost. And while we're doing that, we cannot forget to really increase awareness here about what we are thinking, what we are imagining and assuming versus what's happening in the 3D. Build that trust. We got to buy that pearl, you guys. We got to buy that pearl at one point or another. It's got to happen. Thank you, Koi Army. Thank you for the super chat. Let me go and find your question. Since I took a break with the law, I have again to build my faith. I struggle a little bit sometimes. How long did you take to build your faith with the law, Missy? I sent also a super chat to say thank you, and Neville, for everything. You are both my safe place. You are very special and different than other coaches. You are so incredibly sweet. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad. I want to be the safe place. I want to be the safe space for y'all. Because I know how freaking terrifying it can feel here sometimes. Thank you. How long did it take for me to build my faith? Oh, God. Until I could say without hesitation. Like, how long did it take for me to be unquestionable when it came to the law? It took a while. It took a while. I was a very practical, logical, sensible person, a very left brain, very analytical. So you can probably imagine it took me a while. Which is why one of the things that I am very grateful for was that early on, before even trying to manifest my person back, before I tried to manifest anything big back, was I tested the law. I focused on like building my faith, because that was something that Neville emphasized over and over and over and over again. he emphasized the importance of testing and building faith constantly. And I completely see and understand why. Because it is far too easy to go off of the 3D circumstances and chalk things up to coincidence and, blame causation out there for everything. Naturally. That's how we've been doing it this whole time. So I couldn't tell you exactly how long it was, but it took me a minute. It took me a minute until I could really buy that. It's like several months, several months, maybe even longer. Until I was 100% confident. Yeah, it took me a minute. And to be clear, we don't need to be like unshakable faith before we can even manifest. Like, I'm not trying to imply that you're not going to see anything until you have unwavering faith. But it is going to be something that is going to be considerably helpful in the long run for anything. Because remember, guys, we're always manifesting. Like, we're going to continue to manifest even after we get our desire, after we get our person back, after we get that dream job. We're still always manifesting. So I guess we want to begin to like maybe widen the scope and the big picture here of how we're looking at this. Like, this should be a lifestyle change. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Sweet Sloth. Missy, what do you think about people who come back to themselves without knowing about manifestation, having bad thoughts, etc.? What it is like for them? Sometimes I have the impression that those people who manifested their SP back, it could have just as easily happened without the manifestation, just a coincidence. People who came back. So, and just to make sure I understand, for the people who didn't know about the law, but their person came back, despite bad thoughts and all that, like, what's my take on that? Well, a lot of those people already had the knowing that that person always comes back. For a lot of the people that, perhaps they didn't even know about the law, but very much had a belief like they always come back, or my ex always comes back. That's a very common assumption. If that is an assumption that we hold, we are probably going to see that person come back, or, whoever it is. Just as an example. Because again, even if we don't know about manifestation, it's the law is still working, whether we know it or believe it or not. And yeah, it's very easy to chalk this all up to coincidence. That's what we have been doing. But nothing happens by coincidence. And again, this points back to the importance of observation, because the more that we are observant and get ourselves out of the autopilot, because you have to remember, like, we forget a lot of stuff. Like, we will plant seeds subconsciously and completely forget that we planted those seeds because we're on autopilot. We're not cognizant always of what we are thinking and assuming and imagining. So it's easy to chalk it up to coincidence until you begin to be more observant, and you'll see that it is not statistically possible to have this many coincidences in life, because at a certain point, it is no longer a coincidence, it's a pattern, right? Like, the more that you note, like, everything from like the big things to the small things, the way that you begin to observe and see how things are playing out the way that we had once assumed or once imagined, when that happens hundreds, thousands of times, it gets pretty difficult to chalk it up to coincidence, because it's literally at that point no longer a coincidence. By definition, it's not. Marie Matthews, thank you for the super chat. Oh, I'm just seeing if you had a question attached to it. All right, where were we? There we go. Hi, Missy. Thank you for everything you do. Oh, you're welcome. My question may be a unique one. My darling SP unexpectedly broke up with me after a 1.5 year wonderful and magical relationship. Oh, he is the love of my life. I've been manifesting him back, learning everything from you, with no movement for 3 months. I'm worried my manifestation isn't coming because I am married to a man who is my best friend, but we don't have a romantic relationship. He sort of knew about my SP. He wants me to be happy with someone else, and I'm not hurting him. I can't leave the marriage yet due to financial reasons. Could my manifestation of a happy life with my SP not come into fruition due to my current material status or marital status and this complicated situation? Could marital morals be a hindrance to my manifestation? The good questions. Like, objectively speaking, no. I mean, of course, depending on our morals, depending on our belief and assumption, if it does feel like it's in conflict, if there's guilt surrounding the idea of leaving your marriage or anything like that, I mean, naturally that could play a part, but and that's why we say to, take the current circumstances aside. Like, we have to practice getting to a place where whatever the 3D circumstance, like, it just is. It just is, because we're not being asked to change the 3D. We're being asked to go there and have the experience in imagination, despite the 3D circumstances. Because if we are limiting ourselves based on the 3D circumstances, which is what we typically do, that's where we get stuck. We think to ourselves, because things are the way that they are, it's not going to be able to happen, or it can't happen, or what have you. If we are taking the complicated circumstance of the 3D, like, into the consideration, into the fold, then yeah, we can get ourselves kind of caught up in that. But we don't have to. We don't have to. And that was the entire point of, when Neville talks about, go within, like, turn your back to the 3D and go within, like, that's what he meant. Don't take the circumstances of the 3D as it is in this moment with you into imagination. Like, this is a practice of solely going into that place until we reach that place of conviction, like, until what we experience in imagination feels so, and you'll feel it too. You will feel when you leave that impression, when you have that moment where that seed is planted, it's a powerful one. But if we're bringing in all the stuff from the 3D and the complications and the circumstances, and we're muddling it all up, that's, yeah, it's usually where we wind up stumbling a little bit. But again, it all comes back to it's our assumptions here, right? We are free and clear to assume that everything is unfolding perfectly in the case of your SP. That, regardless of the circumstances or however non-conventional it might seem, none of that we have to take into consideration, because that can't stop your manifestation unless you believe that it does, or you believe that it will. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if I need to elaborate on anything. But rest assured, this is what we mean by the circumstances don't ultimately matter, because it's not the circumstances that can stop you. Nothing can stop you, ultimately. How come we don't need to be in a relaxed state like SATs to do revision? Good question. Well, we don't necessarily have to be in a relaxed state to do any imaginal act. Um, it can be helpful if you're noticing a lot of resistance to what you are imagining. If it feels difficult to imagine and accept whatever it is that you have playing internally, it can be more helpful to be in a relaxed state first. And that even goes with revision. The same thing applies for revision. If what we are revising feels very challenging, if it feels like there's a lot of resistance there, then it's a good idea to get in a relaxed state first. Yeah. But to be clear, we don't have to. I always try to make sure that I'm emphasizing, like, there's no one fixed way to imagine for everyone. You are so welcome, Marie. Naranja, thank you again for the super chat. When should we give up? Suppose she married off and had one or even two children. Or should we never give up? If the person has lived their lives with someone else, what is left for us? So, I mean, we don't want to subject ourselves to pain unnecessarily. That's not what we're doing. That's not the aim of this here. Because I mean, those are hypothetical circumstances that you're bringing up. Like she goes off and gets married. We have these future hypothetical scenarios, but they're just that. They're just hypothetical, right? Now I'm going to be adamant again. Like if we feel like our mental health has taken a nosedive, we should absolutely take a break, take the attention off of trying to get the SP back, and focus on ourselves. Because ultimately, this is all about the change of self, you guys. This is all about the change of self. Like, I know that we are very conditioned to look outside and say, I want that person out there. I will not be happy until I have that person out there. But where are we in here? Where are we in here? Because that is what becomes outpictured. That is what becomes outpictured. So if we are stressed, if we are, if this has taken a toll on us that has really begun to affect us in a negative way, that is doing everyone in this scenario a disservice, but especially yourself. So if it feels like this is taking a real negative toll, if it feels like this has impacted you in a way that is not good, I would absolutely take a break and make sure that you are also building your faith. Like, test and prove or disprove the law. I prove it or disprove it. But this is what I mean. At some point, we have to buy that pearl, or we're just going to be teetering back and forth. I'm not gonna tell people to give up on their desire, because if it was that easy, we would probably just do that. It's not. We shouldn't just give up on what we desire. There's a whole point and reason we have a desire, and that's because it's an experience that we are meant to have. That's why I mean, for a lot of people, we've tried to move on. We've tried to give up. We've tried to just go on with our life. It's not that easy. Right? Like, giving up on the desire is not going to make it any less of a desire. And I know that can be a frustrating thing sometimes, but that's why I'm never going to encourage people to just give up on your person and just go on with your life. No, your desire is there for a reason. But that said, we also have to make sure that we are not losing sight of our own well-being. And putting that person above our own well-being. Do not put anything or anyone above your own well-being. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. But it's okay to take some time for you. and really, like, test your faith, test yourself. Oh, my apologies if I misread that. I thought you were talking about a hypothetical situation. My apologies. I misread that. But I still stand by the rest of what I said. Thank you, random girl. Hi, Missy. SP related. Would it make sense to date others whilst living in the end? But would it mean it comes from fear of waiting, needing advice? Oh, that is a really good question. I get this one a lot when it comes to dating, and it's going to be a personal decision for everybody. Um, I can't really tell you exactly what to do in your circumstance because it really comes down to how you feel. It comes down to, um, you know, what you are moved to do. Like, yes, it's true. We don't want to wait. We don't want to be in the state of waiting. Um, when it comes to fear of waiting, it basically, and it may be helpful to have better understanding of the relationship between the 3D and the 4D, right? Because we know and understand that the 3D moves in a series of events, right? Whereas 4D, we can experience something instantly. So once we reach that place where we know it's done, like, you'll know because it'll feel like you can just live your life, go about your day. Um, I wouldn't do anything that stems from a place of fear. First and foremost, as far as taking an action in the 3D, I wouldn't do anything based and stemming from a place of fear. That's not going to be ideal. Um, but some people do not have any desire or don't feel any need to date others or go meet other people. And there are others who just want to live their life and are just living as they would. So again, it really comes down to what resonates for you. Yeah. And that goes with everything, but especially with the dating thing. Let me know if you need me to clarify any of that, but basically I would not move on anything or take action on something based from fear, coming from a state of fear. Thank you, Elise. Let me try to find your question really quick. How to visualize someone I haven't met yet? Good question. So you don't necessarily have to, because I know, of course, that's going to feel challenging, right? How do we see a face of someone we haven't met yet? There are other ways to visualize that imply that you have met somebody. So instead of trying to like force yourself to see a face that you don't know, is not familiar, which is going to feel difficult, you can imagine a conversation with somebody, a close friend, a family member. Hear them congratulate you on your 1-year anniversary, or congratulate you on the relationship and how you two are so good for each other. Imagine yourself wearing a wedding ring. There are ways that we can imagine that have the implication, that imply that we have what we want. We don't necessarily have to have that person with us in the scene, if that makes sense. Koi Army, thank you. Let me see. I want to revise my whole past. Since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a singer. People all the time said it was unrealistic and the world filled for me. My dreams were never really welcome in this world. Oh. Now where I know about Neville, I want to manifest me to LA under a specific music label I wanted to work to. How should I actually revise my whole past? Should I revise every memory? Good question. That's one way you could do it. That's might feel a bit overwhelming. Like the idea of revising every memory, probably going to feel a bit overwhelming. So not necessarily going to recommend going that route. Instead, you can begin to imagine or revise by imagining that, for the people that told you that your dreams were unrealistic and that, you need to be more sensible or practical, all that stuff. Imagine that they were supportive. Imagine, like, see and hear them in imagination as supporting you, encouraging you, like backing you up. If it feels challenging for certain people, like your parents, imagine a teacher, imagine a close friend, like, oh my God, you have such an amazing voice. Like, you need to do something with that voice, just as an example. So I would be constructing new memories of that sort. Things that would imply that you had more support, you had more backing and encouragement when you were younger to pursue this. And even just, one or two memories that you can have as like core memories, you can start there. Yeah. Thank you, Beyond the Stars. Thank you. SB says he wants to spend the rest of his life with third party. Been manifesting a relationship with SB. What do I do? So I'm not sure how long you have known the law or if you have heard of something called revision. Let me tell you, I have made a handful of videos now about revision. I would revise that statement. Especially like for a statement like that I know is going to have a significant impact, right? Like that one is more than likely going to plant that seed because it has such an impact on us. So first thing I would do is revise that conversation, whatever was said or done to imply that. Because what can happen and where I get so big on revision is because the things that happen in the past tend to like move forward and advance into the future to interact with us again. And we're also constantly going to be stuck on this one thing that they said, like when they said this one thing or when they did this one thing. And it's going to cause a whole lot of resistance when we try to go to the end. When we try to imagine a future with our person, our mind is going to go to, but they said this thing one time or they did that thing one time. So that's where revision really starts to shine. Again, I don't know if you are already familiar, if you've already seen the videos. I'm happy to answer any kind of specific questions about revision, but if there was anything that took place in the past that feels like it really had an impact, really had an effect on the beliefs and assumptions that you have around your desire, if it did so in a negative way, we have to revise. I'm not going to say have to, but I strongly recommend revision. John. I'm stumped because lately all of my manifestations have either not happened or stopped/reverted. Oh, God damn it. I just don't get it. Blocks I'm unaware of, maybe. Yeah. So if things appear to be regressing, if things appear to like stop or go in reverse, that's our cue. That's our indication that we want to be more observant to what we're doing in the day-to-day. Like, where are we dwelling in the day-to-day? How are we feeling? what are the natural thoughts and assumptions, because there may be things that we're not even conscious of that we're ruminating on in the back of the mind, so to speak. So yeah, a lot of every time it's something that we're not aware of. When that happens, there's something going on underneath the conscious surface. So it's just like a, hey, want to want to pay attention to what's going on here. Uh, yes. You talked about revising something someone said was the light bulb moment. I've been resisting revising an argument because it affects me so much, but that's exactly why I should revise it. Bingo. Bingo. Yeah, if we are especially like if the idea of revising it or approaching it, we have like a lot of aversion to that, that especially means we probably want to revise it. Mm-hmm. Hit the nail on the head. JT, thank you so much for the super chat. Hello, friend. I don't know if I. Oh, you've been in the chat. I'm sorry. I thought it's been a minute, but no, I remember seeing you, I think, last week. Hi, Missy. Advice for when the sat scene isn't moving me back in the desired state after facing ego backlash. Good question. Good question. And yeah, I need to make a video talking more about this. So when we're dealing with stupid backlash, when we're kind of in the throes of a trigger, those moments are going to feel particularly difficult to go to the end. Like when we are feeling the fear or the frustration, or we're like in the thick of it, going to the end is going to feel very, very challenging, if not impossible to do. So the before we try to go to the end, if we're in the throes of backlash, is first get ourselves to a place of calm and relaxed and neutral. Like if we're down here, we ideally want to be up here, right? We're down here, we want to be here. Instead of trying to make this leap, just focus on getting yourself to a place where it's neutral, right? So you're not throwing yourself into a scene that feels ridiculous and impossible and that comes with a whole lot of resistance. And this is also why I stress like relaxation. You know, when going into the imaginal acts, we want to be relaxed, ideally, especially if there is a lot of resistance that we're noting. So this is where things like breathing exercises, meditation, EFT tapping, things to help alleviate and shut off that physiological response that we're having. Because it's a fight or flight response. When we get triggered, it's a fight or flight response. Like we're activating a part of the nervous system that's going to make it feel very challenging to go to the end. Yeah. So if you're struggling with SATs because you're in the backlash, first just help yourself to alleviate the backlash. And that might just be that you need to have a good cry. You need to process and release a bunch of crap coming up. Who knows? A lot of times we unintentionally suppress things, especially in this community. It's far too easy for us to suppress our emotions and suppress what we're feeling because we're scared of our reactions and we're scared of our thoughts. So if that's the case, like I guess the first thing is help yourself get to a place that is even just neutral. And then from there, go to the end. From there, go into imagination, if that makes sense. Revision is a lifesaver. Amen, Yara. Amen. Karima, thank you. Seeing if you had a question. How do you change your limiting beliefs? Excellent question. Probably the most important question here. So the whole point of all of this, the whole reason that we're doing any of this is to change the beliefs. So the techniques, the imaginal acts, going to the end, the whole point of all of that is for the purpose of changing these beliefs. It's to recondition these beliefs and assumptions. And that's why I really try to emphasize like the point isn't to like try to get the 3D to change, even though that's what we want. We're all here because we want the 3D to change. But the 3D changes once we change those beliefs, right? Like if we're talking lasting change here, we'll see a lasting change with new beliefs and assumptions. So the entire point is the techniques is to change those beliefs. So make sure that whatever it is that you are doing, however you are imagining, you want to find a way and do so that really resonates for you, that resonates with you. That's really how we leave those subconscious impressions. We plant those seeds, so to speak. Let me know if you need me to elaborate on anything, though. Milan Pop, thank you so much. How to revise meeting a person / removing them? Good question. That we never even met somebody who was I would literally imagine taking an eraser to my memory, taking an eraser to a canvas. I know that sounds really bizarre. Call it bizarre if you want. But that personally really, really helped me as far as being able to forget something completely. So I would give that one a shot. Much love to you too, but no spam in the chat, guys. No spam in the chat. Even if it was a really, really kind message. I appreciate all of you guys. Tam, thank you, thank you, thank you. Where was your question? What is your take on accidentally sending needy thoughts to SP via thought transmission? Some coaches said we could send out needy energy when we're in a state of lack and repel SP instead. Good question. So thought transmission, and I have a little bit of a different take on thought transmission. I know that Neville did talk about it earlier, like some of his earlier works. He spoke about thought transmission. He ended up changing his stance too, but it's not that we're so much sending needy thoughts, like beaming thoughts to that person per se. What's taking place in every moment is we are choosing and selecting states or realities. We're choosing in each moment, we are selecting a state of consciousness. In each moment to moment to moment, rapid fire. And we're usually selecting unconsciously based on the beliefs and assumptions. So when we are, if we are in a state of lack, if we are in a state where, we're feeling separate and sort of desperate, that's where we're selecting the state where that's what's going to show up or continue to show up, right? Like if you are feeling absence of somebody, you're going to manifest the absence of somebody, basically. So I guess the whole idea to counter that is going to the end. So I wouldn't worry so much about every thought that comes into your mind. We don't need to be fearful of our thoughts per se. Um, but instead, use your thoughts as feedback. Use your thoughts to gauge where you might be dwelling in conscious and what realities you might be selecting unintentionally. That's when we can redirect, right? Once we become conscious of it, we can redirect it. We can either revise it or we can shift the attention, right? Becoming the artist. I love that. Thank you. Let's see if you. I'm not sure if you had a question. You do. Okay, I'm trying to see. Oh, you're a voice coach. I love that. Love that. Did you already type up your question, or are you in the middle of doing so? Hmm. Sorry, I'm going through the threads. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Hi, Missy. I am so sad for my breakup. I'm concerned those feelings are interfering with my manifestation. There's also a third party. Any advice would be great. You're mom. No, you're amazing. Thank you. Yeah. I'm so sorry for what you're feeling and what you're going through. I mean, we do still need to honor how we feel, right? As terrible as it might be. Not give ourselves a hard time about it, not try to suppress it. Um, and it's a natural concern that we have that, these feelings of sadness is interfering with the manifestation. Um, and I guess the whole point is transformation. Like, the reason that we're doing the techniques is a transformation of self. So the first and foremost aim is that we're imagining to get ourselves to a place that feels better, that is more alleviated from these feelings of sadness or these fears and these doubts. Um, as far as third parties are concerned, we're practicing with taking the attention away from them. Like, the practice is redirection. The practice is when we have our attention on the end, on being with our person, on going to that end and getting familiar with what that is like. Because we're treating our imaginal acts as a preview of a whole reality, because that's what it is. Like, it's not just a fantasy playing in your head. You can be in it. Like, in imagination, we are in it. We are having the experience of it. Subconsciously, it's going to feel like the same thing. Like, our subconscious mind is not going to be able to tell the difference between an experience that we're having in 3D and one that we're having in imagination. So that's why we are told to continue to go to that place in imagination, as if we are experiencing it right now in the 3D. Because what you're going to notice is that you're naturally going to notice a shift in how you feel. You're going to notice your feelings change. You're going to notice your reactions change. You're going to notice first a change within you. You're going to notice more sense of calm. You're going to notice more sense of security, confidence. Like, these are the things, the gauges, so to speak, that you're going to notice as you continue to go to the end. And if you catch yourself ruminating about 3D circumstances, like the unwanted circumstances, again, that's just feedback that it's been too long since you have visited that state in imagination, and to go back there. I hope that makes sense. I'm just checking to see if I missed anyone. Francesca. SP sees us only as friends and greets me with a kiss on the cheek. And when we say bye, how do I manifest him kiss me on the lips? I want him to do this. Well, that's where you need to dwell on imagination. That's what there's still a lot of focus on the 3D circumstance. And this is what we're aiming to catch. Like we want to begin to like zoom out and note what we are observing and assuming, and is it going off of the 3D or is it what we are imagining? Is we want to practice so that it becomes like what we imagine is what we begin to assume instead of taking that from the 3D. Always so calm. I didn't used to be. Missy, I signed up for one-on-one coaching sessions, but haven't received any further notifications. Are you open for coaching yet? Coaching will be opening this upcoming week. I apologize. This last week got a bit busy. We are in the process of finishing up a move. So I don't want to get started until that, like, we're sorting through it. We're at the tail end of it. Coaching's going to be opening up here soon. So do keep an eye on your inbox. You will receive that notification. And also make sure to check your spam folders. But I'll also be putting a notification on the community, YouTube community threads, letting people know. So you'll get ample heads up before that is, before those doors officially open. The imagination is our savior, quite literally. Literally. Oh, did I miss a super chat? I did. I'm so sorry, Cora. I really began to miss my SP on Thursday. Even that, when I felt his presence in my imagination, I felt how my nervous system calmed down. He is a distraction whenever I feel bad. That is everything. Yes. Yes. You see what you did there? When you begin to imagine being with him, like you noticed that you were missing him. So you turned within, you went into imagination, imagine the two of you together, and you noticed that you started to calm down. You noticed that all of the, the fight or flight, the nervousness, the anxiousness all began to shut off. That's what we're doing here. Even when we don't have contact in the 3D and we live in long distance from each other, did you also feel the connection of your husband in that time when you manifested him? I did. Absolutely, I did. And the same thing, like when I missed him, when I felt that missing, I turned within. I turned within, and I would, in the imagination, he was right there. He was here with me. And I imagined him just holding me. And I could feel it. I could feel my body tension just melting. Everything just melted. Like, even though it's just imagination, you're going to notice a change in how you feel. That is the point. That's what we're aiming to do here. Exactly that. Yes. You guys are so sweet. All right. Checking to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Thank you, Sharon. Oh, did you have, let me see if you had a question. One second, guys. Can a dream just be a dream without placing a meaning to the state we are living in? Some of my dreams are just strange and don't make sense. Yeah. Yeah, dreams can be really bizarre and abstract. Yeah, it's whatever meaning we give to it, really. Uh, I mean, it could be I yeah, yes, for the really weird abstract ones, like, if it doesn't feel like we can glean anything from it, we don't have to give it any meaning. Um, but the same as the 3D circumstances, same with our reactions, it's all feedback. Like, if we're noting a reaction, if we're noticing the meaning that we're giving to something, like, it's just a way to sort of bring that into awareness, conscious awareness. Um, but that said, even if we have a bad dream, even if we have a dream that is in contrast with what we want, we don't have to give it the meaning, the bad meaning. It doesn't have to mean anything. Even if that's the state that you're currently dwelling in, you can move. John, really good question. Really good question. In manifesting an SP, when there's a third party, how can we eliminate feeling guilty that we might be violating the golden rule? I shouldn't have them, etc. Yeah, and I know that that's a very common one, especially in third party circumstances. If it feels like we're meddling, or obviously the intention is not to hurt anyone. Um, it goes without saying. What we have to remember is that creation is finished. It comes back to creation being finished. If all states of consciousness, if everything already exists, past, present, future, doesn't matter. If all states of consciousness, there's infinite realities that we can choose and select from. That means that there is already that state where you and your person are together. And another thing that we have to be mindful of is that doesn't mean it has to imply that the third party gets hurt. That's a really common sticking spot for people, because again, we don't want to see people getting hurt, right? And we can naturally assume that if there's a breakup with the third party and my person, that must mean that somebody's getting heartbroken or that it's going to be ugly. Not necessarily. Like, that's an assumption. That is an assumption. And how do we know that? We know that because amicable breakups happen all the time. People break up and are still on okay terms or good terms or what have you. Like, it doesn't mean that, to be with my person, I must hurt somebody else. No, not at all. Again, there's already a reality where you and your person are together, and that whatever transpired with the third party, like, it doesn't have to be bad. We don't have to assume that it's going to be, let's assume it's going to be anything like that. And I know that may feel difficult to believe, but again, it's all just our assumption. Everything is an assumption. Literally everything. So I would go back to the point of creation being finished. And really also, like, come back to the fact that amicable breakups happen. Like, just because I want this person and there's a third party doesn't mean that anyone has to get hurt. That's not what that means. In fact, there's already a state where the third party is already off living their best life with the love of their life. That's a thing. So in that case, you're helping this third person. Just saying. Neville himself manifested his second wife. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Against all odds. That was a weird situation that he was in. Goyard. Let's discuss my theory. What's your theory? I wanted to discuss with you. So you said that Neville's perspective about the law changed after he experienced the promise. Here comes my theory. I guess his perspective about the law changed after Power of Awareness, because he had a lecture where he talked about that free will of man is a delusion, and he said that all things are possible to God and creation is finished. Yup, he sure did. Where he didn't say is in his other books before. Also, my perspective is Neville was never against manifesting an SP. Mrs. J.E. manifested her SP through Neville's help. What do you say? Exactly. 100%. 100% agreed. Yep. There is definitely, after Neville experienced the promise, that there was a lot of the, well, not a lot. He didn't have a whole lot of limitations beforehand, but any limitations that were present were no longer present. And he made it abundantly clear that free will is an illusion, that all things are possible. This imagination is God. That is our gateway to every state of consciousness and every reality that we can conceive of. So there's a notable shift. And Neville was not at all against manifesting a specific person. He himself manifested a specific person. He had followers that manifested specific people. You know, Mrs. J.E. was a very common example. And I know a lot of people are talking about, the people that argue that Neville was anti-manifest and SP was a Q&A from a lecture where he told somebody, like, you don't want that man, you want to be married. I'm paraphrasing. Like, you don't want that man, you just want to be married. What he was trying to get at in his own way, because reading hundreds of his lectures, like, what he was trying to get across was, don't fixate on that person. Don't fixate. Like, your attention is out here and you need to be focused on the state of you being married. Because just like we have today, back then there were people that obviously struggled when it came to manifesting a specific person. And he would see people that were getting wrapped up in out there. So that was basically a way that he was trying to redirect her attention, or telling her how to redirect her attention. He was not at all against manifesting a specific person. Cena, my story is the story of Mrs. J.E. Ah! I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Francesca. Missy, when your self-concept changes, how does SP see this change, if in contact or no contact? How does SP see this change? Well, I mean, in the case of no contact, they will be a change in how they feel about you. Like, they will be noticing a change in how they feel about you. As far as like the 3D and how that's perceived, I take it is what you mean. It's going to be us that sees the change in them. Whether we're in contact with them or not, like, we're going to see the change in them as we change. Because we're selecting a whole new reality. We're selecting a whole new state. So instead of continuing to select the state where they're showing up in ways that are not ideal, we're selecting the state where they're showing up in ways that are. We're going to see that. You don't want that person, you want the feeling they give you. Bingo. You want the feeling they give you. I mean, you want that person too, of course, but it's because they give you that feeling. You want that person because of the feeling they give you. Yeah. Erica, thank you so much for the super chat. Just seeing if you had a question earlier in the thread. They're finally asleep. not seeing a question. I'm sorry if the super chat is confusing. I am so sorry about that. If you need to type out your question now that after the super chat, that's totally fine. You might be doing that right now, so I'm gonna keep eyes for that. And I know slow mode is super annoying. I know. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Does thinking from a desire during the day help maintain that dominant feeling? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Revisiting that state during the day? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you, Rosie. How do you exactly transform your thoughts? Everyone, when I want to apply the law of assumption, the bad thoughts come up and creep around in my mind. I struggle to apply the law because of that. Oh, first, that is a fantastic question. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. Your thoughts transform from whatever state. Your thoughts stem from whatever state of consciousness you're occupying. Basically, whatever the dominant beliefs and assumptions are, like the thoughts are going to be a byproduct of that. Same thing with the circumstances and all of that. Um, which is why, like, this isn't so much about changing your thoughts as changing the foundation, which is the assumption. Hence the name law of assumption, right? It's all in the name. Changing the assumptions that we have, because when that changes, the thoughts are naturally going to change. As we recondition the beliefs and assumptions, the thoughts are going to naturally change without us having to try to do anything. So if you're I made a video about combating negative thoughts or how to deal with negative thoughts. That one might be helpful if you haven't seen it yet. Just go in the search bar, Missy Renee, dealing with negative thoughts. It should pop right up. I would watch that video. I'd watch that video. But the first thing that I would do is, rest assured, it's not the thoughts themselves that manifest. It's not the thoughts themselves that have power. The only creative power in existence is I am. Period. So we do not need to be at the mercy of our thoughts. If we have a bad thought, it's feedback. It's telling us something like, hey, there may be some attachment to this belief or assumption. That's it. And also more importantly is how we react to those thoughts. That's what's giving us the feedback. But definitely check out that video. Wait, I'm just making sure I didn't miss something here. I'm trying for that every time I want to play the one. Yeah. Last thing that I'll note, if anxiety, so don't even like try to go to the end just yet until you are more relaxed first. It may take a little bit of practice, but you will and can get there. Check out that video that I made. How to start a meditation practice? Thank you. Great question. Great question. So when starting a meditation practice, we have to start smaller and more manageable. It's not the best to give yourself what might be a very unrealistic expectation, like, oh, I'm going to practice meditating an hour a day, twice a day, when we've never meditated before in our life. Start with something that feels manageable, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 2 minutes. Start with something that feels manageable. Like, okay, I know, 30 minutes, 20 minutes might be too long, but I can do 2 minutes. And just do that. Just do that. But whatever the amount of time you dedicate, like just dedicate to doing it at least once a day. Yeah, I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes once a day. like, hey, we got 2 minutes to spare, right? No matter how busy we are, no matter what excuse we might try to come up with, we got 2 minutes to spare. Yeah. The biggest mistake that I was making was I was trying to bite off more than I could chew at the time. With my ADHD brain, trying to sit in silence for 20 minutes felt like torture. So I started much, much smaller. Erica, I don't see your question anywhere. My apologies. I do not see your question. Would you mind retyping that? Or I do not see it anywhere in the thread. Yeah, the only question I see in the thread is asking how to send a super chat. I know it's confusing. I'm so sorry. But if you could do me a solid, retype it out. I am keeping eyes for that. Most common mistake clients make manifesting an SP. Anybody want to take a wild guess? Checking the 3D, checking the 3D, checking the 3D. Stop checking the 3D. But in all seriousness, when we make this about transaction, like, oh, if I do these techniques, then I'm like just going to magically see this thing appear on the outside. That's probably not the best approach. It's not wrong per se, but the idea is changing self first. Like, no one to change but self. And if we're fixated on the outside, because we've got to remember the 3D in any given moment is the past. It's the old out picturing. It's the old stuff. But if we continue to look and react, it's like we get stuck in a feedback loop. That in time, the time that it's been X amount of time. Again, the more that we are conscious of these unwanted things, the more that we are conscious of the absence of our person, the more that we bring into awareness not having and not being, what is that going to manifest? What is going to be outpictured from that? Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I know that we all come here for the same reason. We're all here because we want to see that change to the 3D. But that change in the 3D comes through a change in self, because the 3D is nothing but a reflection and outpicturing of you, and specifically your beliefs, your assumptions, what is brought into your awareness reflected back. It's all you pushed out. So we are in here, we are turning here, because in imagination we don't have the limitations that we are faced with in the 3D. The 3D might be full of obstacles and challenges and lack and all the things that we don't want. In here, none of that can be an obstacle. Like, we can overcome, obviously, we can do anything in imagination. That's the point. So it's transcending all of these obstacles of the 3D in imagination, because that's where we can transcend anything. And that's how we begin to recondition the concept of self. Everybody here is changing self-concept. You got to change your self-concept, 100%. But that's, by self-concept, that means how you are perceiving that person, how you are perceiving yourself, how you are perceiving you and your person. So however you are perceiving them, whatever assumptions you have about them, that's what continues to be outpictured. We got to change that. Uh-oh. If the chat's lagging, try refreshing the chat. I'm so sorry, guys. And on that note, I've got a few more minutes before I got to log off here. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Aura. When I feel that I am in the state of the wish fulfilled, can I fully drop it, or should I come back to it every so often with sats, etc.? When you are in that state of the wish fulfilled, you can absolutely drop it. In fact, when you are in that state of the wish fulfilled, when you are in that Sabbath, you're naturally going to want to drop it. You're not going to have any need or feel any move to continue to imagine. Yeah. I mean, if you want to, just for the pure sake of enjoyment, go there in imagination and it feels effortless and it feels enjoyable, that's one thing. But we don't have to. We certainly don't have to. Where are me? What was the most beautiful success story of your clients? By the way, me and my friend brought a Bible to read it from Neville's perspective to motivate us more. I love that. I love that. Yeah, reading the Bible was something that Missy from 10 years ago would have never imagined. But it is an incredible read. And once we understand that, it is all metaphor, it's all the symbolism. And once we understand that symbolism, it's going to make perfect sense. Perfect sense. So I'm excited for you. What's the most beautiful success? Man. Oh, that one's tough. It's tough when people ask, like, what's your favorite success story? What's the best one? Because there's so many. I mean, if we're talking like in terms of miraculous, well, one that happened recently, or one that sticks with me is somebody came to me who had a person. She lived in Europe. She lived in Central Europe. Her person lived in California. So it was some distance, and for some time they were in no contact. They were in contact when she first initially came to me, and of course filled with all sorts of doubt. And given the circumstances, it looked impossible, right? They're halfway across the world, literally. They're not speaking to you. Seems pretty impossible. Well, we worked together, and we worked on mainly what I work on with people is the application of the law, like the implementing of the law. Because we may know and understand a lot of this, like we are educated about it, but then it's putting it into practice that can be the challenge. So that was predominantly where we worked on, like helping her put this into practice, get her to a place where she was able to imagine deeply so that she could feel and experience that scene, whatever it was that she was imagining, and really, to the point where it felt impactful, to the point that she started to notice that change and shift within her. And long story short, the SP ended up surprising her, like showed up in her town with roses and like he had this whole plan, like for the whole week already set up for her. He did reach out to her once before he showed up. He didn't just show up out of the blue, but he did reach out to her and said, hey, just got this, like, what was exactly what was said? I don't remember exactly what he said verbatim, but basically implying like, make sure you got some free time coming up. Make sure, clear your schedule basically. But she wasn't certainly anticipating or expecting that, but he showed up and just wowed the shit out of her basically. I wish I could remember exactly what was said because she put it in a way that was so eloquent. But basically, it was so night and day. And when you look at how impossible that seemed, no contact. The last time they spoke, they got in a really, really bad fight halfway across the world. And then he showed up in a way that was like the whole 9 yards, like took her around, bought her flowers, just told her how amazing she was, how beautiful she was. And I will never forget the look on her face when she was describing that. So that's one that stuck out naturally. But there's been so many. It's hard to pick a favorite. It's really hard to pick a favorite. Erica, I am so sorry. I'm not seeing the question. I know that there's a character limit with super chats, unfortunately. So it might be that it needs to be broken up, but shoot. What you can also do is leave a comment under my post for this. Like you can always leave a comment where I posted the announcement for this live Q&A. If it's not showing up here, you can reach out to me either by email or by leaving a comment there. I'm so sorry, I don't see it. Ugh. It was incredible. And I'll just never forget the look on her face when she was telling me the story. Like her face was lit up like a freaking Christmas tree. It was amazing. KK. Hi, Missy. What's your take on somatic release to get your body out of fight or flight, i.e., the body holds the score? Yes. Yes. Number one, that is a fantastic read. For anybody that has experienced trauma, which is unfortunately far too many people, The Body Keeps the Score is an incredible book. Since there is absolutely a correlation between the mind and the body, right? Like the physiological reaction that we have to triggers and things being held in our nervous system that haven't been processed, it absolutely can put a damper on all of this. It can make this feel very difficult. Yeah, and that's why I say, like, some things that we can do are learning techniques and methods to help us get out of that fight or flight response, get out of that trigger. Yeah, that's a fantastic book. I freaking love that book. Hi, Misty. Can you date someone else while manifesting an SP? If you'd like. If you'd like. I mean, you're free to do so if you would like to. Is it going to mess up your manifestation? I mean, not unless you assume that it does. It really comes back to how you feel. And it, like, everyone's going to be different. Some people are not big on the idea. They don't want to date. They have no desire to date, what have you. Some people love meeting others and going out and enjoying life. Like, it's really, so long as you don't hold an assumption that it's going to ruin your manifestation, because that's just an assumption, it's fine. I'm doing somatic healing now. Yes. Yeah. Somatic healing is a good one. It's a really good one. I'm just making sure. I'm checking Erica to see if I could find your question anywhere. And I don't. Yeah, please do reach out to me. Either leave me a comment or reach out to me via email. I do apologize. I know the chat can be really dumb sometimes. Not you guys, but like typing in the chat. Anyways, I do have to wrap it up. I do have to call it a day, unfortunately. For those I've not been able, if I wasn't able to get to your question, I sincerely do apologize, but rest assured, I am here every Sunday. So I do hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your weekend. If you are on the one-on-one waitlist for coaching, keep eyes out on your inbox. Just those notifications will be going out soon. Love to each and every one of you. Sincerely, take care of yourself. And see you next week. I'm going to go play with some kittens. Bye, loves.